Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Amazing Fitness live stream event. Today, we've got a very special live stream event. This is our Veterans Day special, and we're joined today with our special chef, Thierry Oliver. Chef
Oliva,
Thierry,
yes.
welcome to
Very good.
the Amazing Fitness Show. We're very pleased to have you today. And so
Thank you.
we know
Thanks,
a
man.
lot of you are probably in the midst of getting ready to celebrate this day. And you're probably getting your preparations together and whatnot. And so we thought we would just kind of add to your your preparations and help you to enjoy this day to the fullest. So Chef Oliver has a lot of interesting experiences that we're going to discuss today. So Chef, you were originally born in France, right?
Close, actually. I was actually going to talk to you about it. I was born in Ivory Coast, so Central Africa, and I am French. My dad is French. My mom is Moroccan. But in 1979, my parents got offered a job in Ivory Coast. My dad always wanted to live in Africa. So that's where I was born. And later on, of course, I went back to France. Has always been part of my journey. So every summer we would be there. I went to college there. So it's been definitely part of my life.
Fantastic. And Chef, you really loved Morocco. And my guess is probably you never thought you were going to leave Morocco. But then a set of circumstances occurred which kind of caused a little shift in your life. Could you walk us through kind of what happened at that time and kind of how this kind of altered your journey slightly?
Yeah. I mean, the journey really started in Ivory Coast when I was pretty young. You know, we used to go out of Abidjan, and we would drive to the beach, and that's where I really fell in love with grilling. There was that place over there, a little shack on the beach. So it was pretty wild, and we would stop there every Sunday almost, and we had it was called Chez Suzy, and her specialty was grilled chicken on the coal, like whole chicken, and that was the best smell, the best barbecue ever. So that's really when I fell in love with grilling, and then the rest of my childhood was my dad grilling in south of France, seafood and a whole bunch of seafood products. He was a big fan of seafood on the grill. So that's growing up. It was like every summer I would be just by the beach and seeing my dad, the king of the grill, like cooking up all that stuff. But then in '93,
so Chef, you grew up into a grilling family.
I did. Yes, my mom was very big in cooking. It was a great team. My mom would usually do all the side dishes and all these like delicious things that would come. She was the one actually that taught me that diversity of food. You know, she would cook food from Lebanon, cook from France, Middle East, Italy, all sort of food. And my dad was really the grill guy. And I used to look at him thinking like, oh my gosh, wow, one day I'll be me on the grill. I'll be the one who's going to be leading the pack and grilling for the family. So that was part of the culture. But yeah, in '93, there was a civil war that started in Ivory Coast, and even though as much as we loved it, we had to leave. And my dad got offered a partnership opportunity in Morocco in the textile business, and that's how we ended up there. And Morocco is beautiful. It was probably one of the best, most beautiful countries that I've got to live in, and so rich. Like the food over there was. I mean, I remember it was like just arriving at the airport, I felt overwhelmed with just the spices in the air. And even today when I arrive there, I still get that same like scent that I had the first time. And the food is so rich. And is that kind of like Morocco is at the corner of, it's just kind of like across that road, that bridge between Europe and Africa, where since the Roman Empire, there's all these, travels that are going through Morocco. And it's a place that's been influenced by so many different cultures. It really has a unique culinary culture, and I got to try so many things. But just like all young people in 2000, I just wanted to kind of like discover the world. So that was my triggering event. I was blessed. My parents always sent me on trips. I got to travel a lot, especially for diving. My dad and I are big scuba divers. So we, I got to travel, and at that 2000, I was like, that's it. Pack up my suitcase. I'm going on a great adventure. So that was my trigger event.
Well, Chef, we've got a bunch of people who are jumping on as we're speaking. They're jumping on every second. So welcome,
Uh-huh.
everybody. If you're just jumping onto our live stream, this is the Amazing Fitness live stream. We've got a special Veterans Day live stream today. We're joined today by a special guest, Chef Thierry Oliver. And he was just discussing with us his unique experience in Morocco. And you know, he grew up in a grilling family, which is totally appropriate because a lot of you right now are probably in the midst of getting your grilling ready. But he grew up in a grilling family, but he cooks just about everything. And so anyway, he was just talking about his experiences of leaving Morocco and how this kind of influenced his life. So again, thank you guys for joining. We want to encourage you to stay till the end because we're going to be giving away some, we're going to be having some nice contests and giving away some prizes. So we want to just give a special shout out to all of you guys who are joining us from Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Google, wherever you may be joining from. Welcome. A big aloha to you. Now, as we mentioned earlier, our special guest today is Chef Thierry Oliver. And so, Chef, you traveled, after you left Morocco, you traveled a lot of different places. And you kind of mentioned that all of these different locations where you went to kind of had an influence on your cooking.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that and kind of maybe what your favorite was as you traveled?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I have to say that France has probably had the biggest impact on my cooking. Like I said, every summer I would just travel there, and then even when I went to college, I was in Grenoble, so I was in the Alps in the mountain. I got to discover so much like good food. So it was definitely a lot less barbecue over there because it's pretty cold. It's hard to grill in winter in the mountain, but I definitely got to try a lot of things. But a very enriching type of trip that I've been taking on a very regular basis back then was going to Spain, discover how they were cooking their meat, and that was the treat. That was really Spain barbecue is just simply unbelievable. But yeah, so I got to travel throughout Europe. I did not have the chance really to go too much to on the Asian side. The furthest that I've gone was really in islands. Like I said, we're big divers, so it would be grilling on a boat in Tahiti or even visiting around where you are in Hawaii, which I love. You're very lucky to be there. And then in 2013, I moved to California. And that's when my daughter was born, and later on my son, and we just decided to settle down here. And that's really when I got into barbecue. I think we're really blessed in America to have such amazing barbecue.
Yes. And I apologize, fans. I forgot to mention that Chef has his own blog, his own barbecuing blog, which has very much influenced the barbecuing world. So, Chef, maybe could you give us a little bit of a description of your blog and kind of what inspired it and what you kind of like to write about?
Yeah, yeah. So my blog is grillculture.com, and I started as grilling with the homebody because we just like everybody were locked up during the COVID pandemic, and we had absolutely nothing to do. And during that time, I just decided to kind of like take barbecuing to the next level. When I started barbecuing, I was pretty much just dumping some meat on the grill, and once it would get brown enough for me, I would just take it out and just serve it. And the result is that you usually be overcooked on the outside and completely undercooked inside. And then I went to one of my friends. One day he invited me. He's like, "Hey, I'm gonna cook something for you. Why don't you just come over?" And it was quite the drive, so he had to like really come up with something good. I told him like, I'm not gonna drive an hour if you don't really do something good. So we drove there, and he made an amazing piece of filet mignon, and I was stunned. I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's like the best filet mignon I had. It's like perfectly cooked inside and outside. What? How did you do that?" And he showed me like his barbecue was amazing, and he had like all these probes, his fan controlling I was like, "Wow, this is like." I'm a beginner here, man. so, so I decided to really get into that. And during the pandemic, I got into smoking. I invested into a PK grill. I invested into a sous vide, and I really got into it. And every day was my little treat. And my wife and I, we kind of like connected when we met. Uh, Food was always like big for us, and this is how we bonded. And we maybe without food we might not even have been together. So who knows? But anyway, so we kind of like this was our little treat, during the pandemic. We would just go online, and I would order some wagyu beef from Snake River Farm, and then we would just cook it at home. And that made like the pandemic, more bearable. Like instead of like going out or going to restaurant, which we couldn't, we would just spend time in the backyard and sitting. We had a little sitting area, and we would just like enjoy ourselves there. And then at the end of the pandemic, we started inviting people over, and then everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, dude, that's amazing! Hey, you got to do something. Like, why don't you just start your blog? That's great." I started getting like my family would just like call and say, "Hey, for my birthday, can I come over? Can you cook for me?" It's like, "Oh yeah, I mean that'd be an honor." So and then I started cooking, and we had like more people over, and then my mother-in-law and my brother-in-law started calling me to have recipes, so I started posting them, and my kids came up with the name Grilling with the Homebody, because I was not going out anymore after the pandemic. I would just stay home, and they were like, "Man, Dad, you just like turned into like a caveman. You're like a homebody." So we just came up with the name Grilling with the Homebody. I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna be in my man cave here and there. And then later on, I just felt like what I was cooking online, I just couldn't. I could find like only the same recipe. It was always like the usual brisket done like some different way, or the usual like ribeye and the classic recipes that you find everywhere. And I felt like this is not really me. And I like to make keftas from Morocco every now and then. I like to make try some of the Serbian recipes that are from my wife's family side. I love a good, of course, piece of ribs from Texas. And I also like a filet mignon with some blue cheese sauce from France. So I felt like, hey, you know what? This is really who I am as a blogger. So I'm going to make recipes that are for the barbecue or the grill. They're all meat-based recipes, basically, but they're from all over the world. And I felt like this is my signature. If you come to my site, you're going to find recipes from everywhere in the world. It's not going to be your standard. I mean, you'll find, recipes for, brisket and everything. But what I want to bring to my audience is really a little bit of my traveling, my favorite recipes, my little touch, like that seasoning is, making things better here and there. So that's what my blog is about.
Chef, I love what you just said, and let me see if I can summarize kind of a little bit of what you said for our audience. So, guys, what Chef was mentioning, and it's kind of interesting because Chef, yesterday we actually had a show on digital detoxing, because a lot of times electronic devices are taking our attention away from one another, and so what Chef was just explaining to us was that food played a central role in his meeting his wife, in his starting his blog, and in a lot of different things with his friends. A lot of friends were making requests for him to cook different things. So guys, don't underestimate how food can actually bring us together. So I just wanted to kind of summarize what he just said. He said it just really wonderfully. So Chef, let's go with what we were just saying about friends and family. Let's say you guys are all planning a big cookout or a big event, and you're planning on cooking a meal. What would be your go-to? And it doesn't have to be grilling, but I know grilling is your specialty. So what would be your go-to meal to prepare for them?
Yeah, it really depends. In California, we have that tri-tip, and I got to discover it a few years ago. So it has become really my go-to place as a roast. I mean, I mentioned Snicker Farm a little earlier in the interview because I discovered Wagyu beef when I were during the pandemic. I was looking for a special treat for my wife for Mother's Day, and then I just browsed online and discovered Wagyu beef, and they make the best Wagyu that I've tried so far. It's American Wagyu, so they were pioneer here. Like a few years ago, they started breeding Wagyus from Japan and bringing it here. So I discovered that, and that is kind of like a melt in your mouth piece of meat. I usually cook it as a roast in sous vide. Sous vide has really become a complete total part of my existence, and it's kind of like almost like I cannot cook without it almost. So, and this is something you can cook fish in it, you can cook meat, beef in it, you can cook poultry in it. It really helps you control perfectly the internal temperature of your cooking. And it what really made the difference, to get back to that idea of like having the gathering, is at the beginning, before I started cooking that, I would have people come over, and I would have like a whole bunch of people come here. And usually when I have a whole bunch of people coming here, I turn to roast. It's easier to cook for everyone rather than have like separate pieces that cook at different temperature and different weight. But so I would smoke the meat usually that I'm cooking. But the problem is that I would have my guests would come over and they would be starving. It's like by 5:30, everybody would be like enraged and asking me, when are we going to eat? When are we going to eat, Thierry? When is that meat getting out? And I would be like, dude, this is barbecue. You know, I'm smoking the meat. This is almost an art form. And you're going to have to be patient. I mean, it could take like another 30 minutes. It could take an hour. Sometimes I would get brisket that are cooking. Like I actually would wake up at 1 a.m. and start cooking, and it would not be ready until 17 hours later. So it kind of like turned into really like stressful situation. My mother-in-law would just go like berserk. My wife would like start beating me. So it would be like, okay, I just thought like, hey, I got to come up with a better system. So I started using sous vide. And basically the idea of sous vide is that you take your meat ahead of time, and I usually do it the day before. You put it in a plastic bag. It doesn't have to be anything like too fancy. You can take a Ziploc bag, you put your roast in it, and then you put it into, it's kind of like a water bath. And you can use a pot, or you can use like a bucket you have at home. And then you just need that little tube, that's that precision cooker, and it maintains the water temperature at 129 degrees for how long you want to cook it. And 24 hours tend to be the sweet spot for roast at that temperature. And then all you have to do is just you take it out of the bag, and it absorbs all the seasoning from the flavor from the seasoning you put inside the bag. For all that time, it tenderizes the meat. And what it does, which is most important, it renders the fat that's inside the meat, and it releases that flavor. So you get a healthy piece of beef. What's that?
So it kind of locks in the flavor.
It locks in the flavor, it locks in the liquid. So you have a moist piece of beef that is tenderized, and it usually keeps all the vitamins and all it doesn't overcook. It doesn't like, you know, when you cook the meat in general, everything that's good in the meat tends to be burnt.
Right.
But the sous vide process keeps it inside, and so you get all the healthy stuff from the meat, whatever meat you're cooking, and it's cooked at the right temperature. And then usually what I have to do is when that happens, I just take out the meat and I wait until everybody's ready. I would just kind of like get it ready for like maybe 30 minutes to an hour, depends like really what you don't want to do too long because it cools down otherwise. But 30 minutes usually is like, it's perfectly fine. And then you just put it in the grill, and it gives it that smoky flavor if you like it on a charcoal grill. Otherwise, you can just put it on a pan, or you can put it on a gas grill, whichever really works for you. And usually, since I started adopting that method, no more problem with my mother-in-law. So yeah, so if I would give an advice, it's like fairly affordable. I think it's around like the Innova, which is like the standard brand, is around like $90. It's a great investment, and it lasts for like a lifetime. I've had mine since I started the journey. It works perfectly fine. And usually, even when I travel now, we get an Airbnb and we go cook someplace. I just prepare the meat, I put it sous vide, and I just take it with us. And once we get there, it's ready to cook. Or if it's in the morning, like I cook it right before. You want to do fish like that? It's great way to do it. The best is swordfish. You just put it in the bag for 45 minutes. It needs to be 45 minutes sharp, otherwise it falls apart. And you just take it out. You just sear it, add a little caper, and that's it. Comes out perfect. So it's an amazing tool. Amazing tool.
Wherever you go, you're ready. You can just put it on the grill and.
Exactly. So this weekend, if you don't have one, I would say just go get one right now. You'll save yourself the trouble of having to feed everyone and whatever. So, but that's definitely not something like, I don't know, it's not really worth it to do it if you're just gonna have like burgers or like things like that. It's really mostly pieces of meat that needs to be tenderized or like roast that are doing better with it, or things that you need to control a little bit more. Yeah.
Chef, do you ever get requests for Wagyu burgers? Since you mentioned Wagyu, do you ever get requests for those?
Wagyu burger?
Yeah.
Usually it's mostly not so much about Wagyu burger. Most people are asking about Wagyu steaks. It's mostly ribeye or filet mignon, all these kind of like higher end cuts of beef. I think that Wagyu, the best of Wagyu is really still the roast, because like I said, what makes it so particular is really the fat that gets in the muscle. Like the Wagyu beefs are usually cows that are raised in a very specific way. The way they make it even in Japan, I don't know if it's a myth or reality, but they used to like massage the cows, give them beer, so it gets them hungry, and they feed them with like some very specific diet that's a mix of like grain and grass. They usually are outside, so it's a very healthy type of beef. And what happens is that the cows are relaxed, and then the fat that they're getting is healthy fat, and it gets into their muscles. And when you cook it, that fat just melts little by little, and then it really is kind of like an oily texture and into the beef, and that's amazing. And that's great when you have like if you want to have a steak, like for example ribeye. If you buy it at the store, it will have some marbling like that, but not as much as Wagyu. And usually you have that chunk of fat that surrounds the ribeye that's going to be things you have to discard. The way I do it is usually when I cook it sous vide, it releases that flavor. And when you do a steak, if it's a smaller cut, you don't need to go for 24 hours. You can just do 6 to 8 hours. It's perfectly fine. Then it melts into the bag. And then and this is what I'm doing, is my personal signature for that. Not everyone likes it. Some people just like to put it on the grill at that point. I discard the fat that's around it, and I just keep the center part of it. Because what happens is that once the fat already rendered, you can already get rid of the rest. And then if you take your steak as it is and you sear it on both sides, you'll get a perfect crust on either side without having to worry about discarding the fat and all that. So, and it comes out just perfectly, just a little bit of salt on top.
Wow. Chef, time just goes so fast when you're having fun. It's already 6:25. We've still got tons of people joining. You've gotten a few hearts from folks. You can't see them, but some folks have sent you some hearts, and I'm sure they've got questions for you. I guess so. To just kind of sum up what Chef has been saying so far, and we wanted to kind of make sure that we kind of gave you guys this message, is that make sure today that you're living it to the fullest, with good food, sharing it with family and loved ones. And just as Chef and I are doing right now, stories are a great way to do it as well. If you guys have a veteran in your life, maybe a friend or a family member, listen to the stories that they might have to tell, or share your stories as well. So Chef, let me ask you this. I'm sure, in your career, you've seen people make mistakes on the barbecue grill. And, you've probably seen your fair share of them. And what tips would you have for all of us? If we're about to take out the grill and cook a special meal for our loved ones or our veterans, what would you suggest?
like I said, I was the first one making the mistakes. Yeah, that's when I started. I think nowadays we've got a ton of tools that are there to help us cook. And you have so many videos online on YouTube or even like recipes online. So as long as you follow with the right ingredient, my dad used to say it's 80% the ingredients, 20% technique. I think as long as you got a good piece of meat, whichever you're cooking, fairly decent equipment, and you follow the right recipe, chances you're going to come out with something fairly good. The only mistake that I personally have noticed that for a lot of people, they restrict themselves into that little bubble of like the same routine uh, recipes, and it's kind of like reaching the destination in barbecue when there's so much potential out there. And what I like is the journey. That's personally what I've been loving is the journey to, and that's why I'm calling in my video. I'm calling it like join me on that culinary journey around the world. It's because cooking is a journey. That don't limit yourself to like reaching a destination. There is so much to learn. It's something to be done with friends. It's something to be done, and you will make mistakes. You come out to I mean, plenty of time. I mean, I'm trying these new recipes and it doesn't come out right, and then I have to make some adjustments, and you make it your own, and that's what's fun. Make cooking fun. Don't make it a chore. Don't make it like an everyday like, hey, that's it. I need to cook for the kids. That's boring. That's depressing. Make it fun. Like, don't hesitate. Try something new, and you might not like it. That's fine. There's always a next recipe. So that's my advice.
What wise words. What Chef was saying, everybody, is that cooking is a journey. It's an adventure. It's a discovery process. You might make mistakes along the way, but don't worry. You'll learn from them and improve and grow along the way. Chef, I'm sure a lot of our listeners are wondering how they can get in contact with you. So later on we're going to post your blog, so any of them who want to follow you can go to your blog. But is there any other means if they wanted to kind of follow you or get in contact with you
Yeah, I'm posting my videos every week. I have a new video. It's usually a recipe or a cooking technique. So if you want to follow my journey around the world, I'm trying to bring some new recipes every weekend. And they're posted on YouTube, but they're also on my blog. And I try to have them also on all my social media. I'm still discovering the whole social media thing, so I'm trying to get them posted on a fairly regular basis. Yeah, that's the best way to follow me. And then on my blog, you have like my email. It's my first and last name, Thierry Oliva at grailculture.com. And instant message on Instagram or Facebook. I'm pretty much in most social media. So I always love to respond. Try to respond within 24 hours. So I'm always there.
Fantastic, Chef. Well, just a few quick resources for you guys this Veterans Day. So if you are really into barbecuing and whatnot, we just wanted to show you our lemon squeezer stainless steel. So you could probably, if you've got something on the grill, you could squeeze some lemon juice, some lime juice or whatnot on it. As well, if you've got a favorite family member or veteran, we want to remind you about our massage gun. That might be helpful. We want to also show you, some of them might enjoy, I like this. This is a tactical flashlight. If you enjoy hiking, you could just kind of use this flashlight. We wanted to also remind each and every one of you to be safe and just stay hydrated throughout the day. So this is a nice drinking bottle. It kind of motivates you by giving you the measurements as you go along. So, it shows you when you've reached a liter. I know sometimes I have trouble myself drinking a full liter of water throughout the day. And so that can help you. Again, another hiking tool. If you're going to go hiking this Veterans Day, here's a flashlight that can help you. It's very mini, it's very light. You can just take it out of your pocket and see everything. And then finally, if for that very special meal, if you're cooking a Wagyu steak, as Chef mentioned, and you've got all of your sides, here's some organic herbal tea that you can have with it as well to enjoy the meal. So those are just a few resources we just wanted to remind you guys of. We wanted to thank you guys so much for joining us. And Chef, a big mahalo, that's Hawaiian for thank you, mahalo and aloha. Thank you for being with us today. And for all of you veterans out there, we just wanted to say thank you so very much for serving our country. And we hope that this video, this live stream was helpful for really making the most out of this. But we thank you for all you've done for our country. And so again, for all of you, thank you guys so very much for joining us. Chef, thank you again. And hope to have you on again sometime for a different adventure and a different meal.
It's always my pleasure, Lynn. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and a big aloha. Thank you very much.